Dr. Michael in the building. Welcome to the My Tribe podcast.
Dude, I'm so stoked. We've been trying to work this out for a long time.
I can't even remember how long.
It's probably been like a year and a half.
It's probably been, yeah, it's been a minute, dude. Dude, so grateful to introduce My Tribe, if they haven't known you already, to the best chiropractor in the world, in my opinion. The world. Some claim South Florida. I'm going all over here. And dude, I'm so grateful to have met you down here. You guys are truly like a family to me, and I'm so grateful and so excited to have you on and have you tell a little bit about your story here today.
Awesome. Well, I couldn't agree more. You've become a part of our family. You are so integrated with what we represent and our ministry to the community. So to have you as a part of that, have you as a support system and a leader in the community is amazing, because we just want to spread such good news and hope and healing for people as quickly and as far best from a geographical standpoint as we can. So to create more impact through you, through our brand partners, through other individuals who have that same desire that we see, it's really amazing, and we're honored to have you as a huge part of that family of ours.
Dude, thank you so much. It's rare to find somebody so impact driven as yourself. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for me, like you guys will hear today, my foundation always goes back to Scripture and what the Bible encourages us to do, and how Christ led his life trying to just impact people with this good news that we're broken. We don't have what it takes. We fall short all the time, and that's okay. It's okay when you know that Jesus is the one who puts it back together. He's the one that made it fulfilled on the cross, and he's the one that shows us how to do that each and every day when we go through our struggles. So when I see that impact that Christ had on the earth for the 33 flesh human years that he lived, I go, wow, is my life better accumulating things or making impacts on other people and impacting their life and showing them that life is amazing here on earth and after earth as well? So how can we create a healthy life? How can we create a healthy family? How can we be not only like physically healthy, but mentally healthy as well, where we really get up and we enjoy our day-to-day impact and our day-to-day service or our day-to-day struggle, where we find joy and purpose every moment of every day. And that's what kind of leads me back to, if I'm having a struggle day, someone comes and does something that's, a little irking to me, I always go back to what's my mission and what's my purpose. And that's seeing wellness and health and healing and restoration in the people around me.
And you do that through chiropractic care here at Graceful Spinal Care, correct?
Yeah, we do it through our office. That's our main ministry. We also have businesses in Tampa as well. We are really just driven on how can we impact as globally as possible. So whether it's through donations and offerings and givings, but mainly, we're here in Southeast Florida, Pompano Beach, serving the community here, changing one life at a time.
Tell me a little bit about your specific practice. I mean, how did you get into chiropractic care? How did you end up where you are today? Take me from the beginning to today.
That's a great story. So I grew up in South Florida. My dad's actually a chiropractor. It's kind of like a family business, right? That's what people like to say. But my dad and I are so different in such a loving way. Like, I love my dad. He made such an impact on our community here. But my office is not his office. My dad sold his office about 11 years ago. He went to a different part of leadership in chiropractic, helping new students get into chiropractic, and I then formulated my own path. But I became a chiropractor and got into it because chiropractic literally saved my life. I grew up really unhealthy. Not to say that my lifestyle was bad, but when you went to school 40 years ago, we didn't have the same information that we do now. So I was getting adjusted. I ate pretty okay, but like I still love candy. I would sneak candy all the time. I would love ice cream. I would sneak ice cream all the time as a kid. Like, you know, it's there, and I'm like, ooh, let's go to the quickie store down the road. I did a lot of unhealthy things, even though I played sports and I was active, and you know, God had it laid out in my life that I was going to end up getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Oof. So I remember I was on a cruise with my parents. We were in Mexico. And like I said, I was an athlete. I played sports my entire childhood. I have 2 older siblings. We're wrestling, baseball, hockey, street football, getting road rash, just having fun all the time.
Active kids growing up in the 90s, yeah.
I get off the boat in Cozumel, Mexico.
Okay.
As an 8-year-old, my legs are killing me. I can't take like 20 steps without searing pain in my legs. Oh. My dad, being a doctor, was like thrown off. Like it was almost like an overnight switch.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you'd go on cruises, they'd give you these like tourist water bottles that are like legit like this big.
I do remember them.
They're like massive.
4 stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore. Now they like sell you for $87 these tiny little water bottles before you get off the boat. But I remember my parents had gotten like a couple of the massive water bottles. And I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm so thirsty. And we had like been off the boat for like 20 minutes. And I've been on cruises my whole life. So I'm like walking Cozumel, I've done it 57,000 times. It's not abnormal for us. Mm-hmm. We did it every year. That was our yearly family trip. So my dad gives me the water bottle. I literally chugged the water bottle that was this big. Mind you, I was probably like this tall. So it was half of me.
Literally half your water weight.
And I just remember this distinct look where my dad looked at my mom of like, something's not good.
Wow.
So we get back a couple days later, and there was an osteopath, a DO, that worked next to my dad, like a couple doors down. And he goes and talks with him, and he's like, hey, this is what's going on with Michael. And he goes, hey, bring him in. We're going to do a little blood checker. This is like when glucose meters, now they stick on your arm, and they're tiny, but they're like these brick cases that they would come out. And he checks my blood. My blood was through the roof. I had such high blood sugar. So he says to my parents, he's like, you need to go get a blood draw. You need to go take him to the hospital. Like, I think we have like a diabetic situation.
Wow.
So at 8 years old, 2 weeks before my 9th birthday, it was December 4th, 2000.
Okay.
I got rushed to the ER, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. My blood sugar was 694. And mind you, normal, they keep changing the normal, but back in the day when I got diagnosed, normal was like 70 to 125. Now they say it's like, I was at 694.
Almost 10x?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So my body was literally eating itself. There's something called a cachexic state where your body is breaking itself down, trying to survive. So at 8 years old, because I was so unwell, I weighed 34 pounds.
Holy shit.
I was skin and bones and just incredibly unhealthy.
Wow.
And that led me down an incredible health journey, roller coaster. So learning how to manage something where everybody else in my family is super healthy, we get thrown into this. So we're going to endocrinology appointments, diabetic educators. You go through this whole thing as an 8-year-old becoming a 9-year-old. I was at Joe DiMaggio, which is like the top endocrinology hospital at the time, pediatric endocrinology. And I remember the doctor there. I literally went there for years and years. Never could get my blood sugar under control. I did every diet. I did every exercise. I switched every insulin type that they wanted me to. Like, I did everything to try to be healthy.
You were really doing it. You weren't cheating.
No, it wasn't no nonsense. Like, I really changed my life. And I was still sick as a dog. Oof. Blood sugars, roller coaster. They were trying to put me on medications. I'd never taken a medication in my life prior to this. And they're trying to put me on medications left and right. Then they tell me it's something else. Then they tell me it's your hormones and it's your growth hormone and you need this and you need that. So it was this just cycle, this uncontrollable cycle in a downward spiral. And I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And my dad ended up going to a chiropractic conference when I was 18. So this is now, we're going from 8 to 18, a decade of this. And I can get into, I had unbelievable suicidal thoughts back when I was a child because I was so miserable. I had migraines 5 days a week. My blood sugars were out of control. I was wetting the bed till I was 12 years old because I had no neurological control because I was so unhealthy. And they couldn't figure it out in the medical world. And I would still get adjusted, here and there as my dad would see necessary. And then my dad met somebody where there's another sector of chiropractic. It's called upper cervical chiropractic care, where they really specialize in the top 3 neck bones, where the brain stem actually comes out of the skull down into the top 3 neck bones. So the occiput, C1, C2. That's where you have the brain stem organized when we're living. So he meets this gentleman and he starts talking to my dad about this thing called the vagus nerve, which is super popular now, but like 20 years ago, 18, or how old am I now? So that was 15, 16 years ago, like nobody really talked about it. He starts talking about, there's a nerve that goes out of the brain stem, wraps around C1, C2, goes directly to the pancreas and helps modulate blood sugars. And my dad's like, dude, I'm willing to try anything. So now think of this, my dad's a doctor, professional, helps thousands of people, and he goes, I may not be good enough, I need to take my son to somebody else. Or maybe there's somebody who knows something different than I do. And I can only humble myself as a chiropractor who impacts thousands of people a month, who has a son, if I had to say that, where I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Wow.
So my dad takes me to this gentleman. They start making these very gentle corrections to my atlas, my upper cervical spine. No twisting, cracking, popping, nothing crazy, nothing abrupt. It was very gentle and precise. Literally measurements on an x-ray to get an exact angle on how to correct the joint and the upper cervical junction. Literally in 6 months, it changed my life. I was going 3 days a week for 6 months.
And it's 6 months.
6 months, it changed my life.
What were you before?
Yeah, so if any of you are familiar with HbA1c testing, my average blood sugar was close to 300, which is horrible. My HbA1c, if I remember correctly, and forgive me, this is like 16 years ago, it was around a 12 or a 13. It was really not good. In 6 months, my HbA1c went down to a 7.
Wow.
Which means my average blood sugar was like 180, 170. So it was like still a little higher than where they want it to be, but in comparison, it was life-changing.
Wow.
I didn't have another migraine for 15 years after having them for 5 days a week.
Holy shit.
So
It's insane.
we talk about the trajectory of life, and I have a firm belief that God put diabetes in my life, that he didn't give it to me to punish me, even though when I was a kid, I thought it was a punishment. I thought I did something where I deserved it, or I was not good enough.
Sneak all that candy, you get payback.
Yeah.
Oh, it's easy for that kid to.
And I realized that God didn't do it to punish me. He did it to mold and shape me to be on fire for serving people. Because if I didn't have that pain, there's no way. I get the hardest cases that I literally have 25% of my practice either drives 2.5 hours to come see me or flies in from out of the country. And it's an honor and a blessing, because what I can promise people, I'm not going to promise I'm going to get your result overnight. I'm not promising anything that I can't. But what I promise you is when you walk into my office, I'm going to love and care for you the same way that I care for my wife, for my son, for my parents, for my best friends, for my siblings, for everybody in my life. I'm going to give you everything I got. Because nobody gave that to me in the medical world.
That's unbelievable. It's such a breath of fresh air in the medical world that is so toxic and so disgusting. But for somebody to be living proof of the practice that you get to apply and give to people, it's almost like it's a service, but it feels more than that, because I've been blessed to be a patient here. And what you just said is something that I truly felt from day one up until getting adjusted yesterday. It is the same commitment, the care, and our relationship has evolved in many amazing ways, but it's the same level of commitment and impact. So I can, as a testimonial to what you just said, most certainly, like, wow. And I love these things because I get to see like behind the curtain of like of the true intentions of someone, of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it I've gotten like emotional after the fact of getting to know somebody deeper. Then you're in there, you see, and you're like, wait, this is what they're talking about. This is their mission. And seeing them living that out every day is so impactful. I mean, you're one of the most driven people that I know. And like, it's not really that surprising now. Like when you see like, oh wow, this guy's on it. He's always hustling. He's always at a market, always growing. And it's when you think of the commitment that you've made to that both God made to you and you made to serve others, it's really not that surprising anymore.
Yeah.
In the most beautiful way.
Yeah.
Not to take anything away from what you've done, what you do, the amazing practice, ministry as you're calling it here. Why do you call it a ministry? I love that.
Because it's not me who does it. I'm just a tool. I'm a vessel for God to utilize and impact in people's life. Whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, I'm going to love and care for you just the same. I'm going to love and serve you as if you're a brother in Christ, whether you are or you aren't. Because that's how Christ went and loved and served. He knew Judas was going to betray him the next day and still loved and served him the night before.
Yeah.
And when we could come out to the world in that mindset and that impact and that desire, it takes away the chaos. We live in such a chaotic time right now. It's unfortunate. Left versus right, right versus wrong. Who's this? Who's that? Identities that are unknown, and it creates so much turmoil. And that is my firm belief is from the devil. He wants turmoil. He wants anger. He wants frustration. He wants hate between the two of us. Instead of us coming together in unity and in love and in passion and service and coming to know that that is how Christ orchestrated this. He desired that to occur in that manner. He doesn't love the turmoil. He doesn't love the chaos. He doesn't love the sin, but he loves the sinner.
To be redeemed. What does that mean to you?
It means that as often as I fall short, he's always got my back. That he's always the answer. Even when I'm super happy or I'm super frustrated, that his choice to love me is always there for me to fall back on. That I'm never alone. I'm never put in a corner. That he will always give me a way out. It may not be an easy way out, but he'll always show you the path. One of my favorite scripture chapters and verses is Romans 5:1 through 5:5. And it talks about trials and tribulations and how those trials and tribulations that we go through mold and shape our character and rejoicing in God, because that's how God, so we can become the person that God desires us to be. And to me, that's where the diabetes came in. That's where my family childhood issues molded me. I grew up in a family where money was always a problem. Just not lacking financial intelligence. My parents came from generations where they came from the Great Depression in New York. And, my parents did an amazing job in comparison to 1 and 2 generations before. And now I've kind of taken that baton for the next generation of the Cohens of how can I do that even better? How can we really show financial stewardship, do good things with our money, quote unquote good, and really just continue to build that foundation for our family and our community to stand upon so we can continue to serve at a higher level. Our goal is to always make a bigger impact year over year. Do we get to serve more people in the office? Do we get to donate more money to ministries? Do we get to, however we get to utilize that, it's how can we do more year over year? That's part of my driving factor. Why do you still see me at markets? My office is 90+% referral. Do I need to be at a market? No. Do I want to be at a market? Absolutely. Because even if one more person decides to take the risk in coming to see me, let's take the chance.
Yeah.
That's one more life I get to impact. That God gets to utilize me for and speak to and see healing and see restoration.
Wow. What do you say to the doubters of chiropractic?
Those are my favorite. I love the skeptics. I love the doubters. I love the people on the internet. Chiropractors are not real doctors. Well, say that to your government. Say that to, even if you want to call it the AMA. The AMA lost a lawsuit against chiropractic in 1986. People don't realize that. The AMA put out this quackery campaign to try to make chiropractors look insane. They don't know what they're doing. It was so funny because 99% of people have no idea. They lost the Supreme Court battle. They got found guilty for literally doing a Sherman antitrust act, essentially trying to put chiropractors out of business.
Wow.
Trying to crush the profession.
Wow.
And it turned out to be completely fallacy.
I didn't know that. I believe it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
crazy.
legal documentation. You can look at the judicial records.
It's not surprising.
So for me, the doubters are more doubters because they've been told to doubt versus they've actually ever really been to a chiropractor or seen it. And don't get me wrong, it's like any profession. You're in training, right? There are some amazing trainers. Shout out to My Tribe Training. And there are some trainers that think they can do a million things and then they end up hurting their client. And then they're like, let me rub you down. Let me try to stretch this out. Let me try to be something that I'm not because they don't have the desire to get better at their actual skill set. So there's good and bad in every profession. Chiropractic's not immune to that.
Yeah. The good cops, bad cops.
Totally.
Yeah. Trainers A to Z,
No profession is immune to that. So you just have to understand that. That's why I'm grateful to have a mainly referral-based practice because when you refer someone, you're like, hey, this is my experience at Graceful Spinal Care. This is what Dr. Michael has educated me, has done for me, has shown me. You get a firsthand experience with what goes on in our practice. So
it certainly speaks to the level of service and the quality that you're delivering if your practice is 90% referrals.
Yeah. And I mean, I could touch on that and I could go off on science all day long and how the neurophysiology starts in the brain, comes out through the spinal cord, boom, and then we're hitting all the peripheral nerves and we're hitting the cells, the tissues, the organs. So when people are like chiropractic's for neck pain, back pain only, you're like, okay, but the same nerve that's being irritated out of the neck goes to the gut, and we want to know why we have gut issues. And when a baby has colic or is constipated and we baby adjust an atlas, just get that atlas back in alignment, activating the vagus nerve, and boom, that baby craps on my table when it hasn't gone to the bathroom in 4 days and the mom and dad are stressed out of their mind. And you go, chiropractic's quackery, man. Nobody makes a bigger joke about it than me because I have so much confidence in what we do. I have been involved in some of the most amazing practices in the world. I've seen the most amazing results in our office, and I'm not saying it's me. I believe that the body is created to heal itself when there's no nerve interference. One of my favorite chiropractic quotes is, nature needs no help, it just needs no nerve interference.
Yeah, it's almost like the spine is a hose and you're taking the kinks out and putting everything back in alignment so it can flow properly.
Exactly.
I go to plumbing references.
Yeah.
Being a building engineer.
I was like the old superintendent over here.
That's it. Yeah, I got to go back to the plumbing, man. So tell me a little bit about, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this channel here. Can you speak to your entrepreneurial journey? That specifically, I know you just opened a business in Tampa.
Yep.
How's that going? Tell me a little bit about those experiences here.
Yeah, I love being an entrepreneur. I love it. It is not for the faint of heart, though. Not at all. So,
why do you say that?
the grind is 24/7. I don't know if you heard in the background, my office phone, it just happens to go off at 8:30 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning or 2 in the morning or 24/7. People are needing help and restoration, right? So you have to be able to compartmentalize. I know we've chatted about this in the past. Life-work balance, how do you not get so stressed out, all these things. But yeah, the entrepreneurship journey is not for the faint of heart, but it is incredibly rewarding. I remember the first time I made $1.
Really?
Yeah, I remember the first patient I had.
Tell me about that.
It was a referral from a buddy. I had just opened up. I had put all my money into the business. into here.
This office.
I have a wife and a child. I did not take out any SBA loans. I saved I did not pay my student loans for like 2 years. So that's kind of we'll talk about that another time. I tried to save every dollar I had. I actually went and worked my first 2.5 years of practice. I went and worked for my mentor because I believe in schooling after schooling. You go to become a doctor. Oh, you cool, you got this title. It doesn't mean you know anything about how to attract new patients, how to communicate, and how to get good results, and then how to retain and how to collect money. Because at the end of the day, I wish I could do what I do for free. I wish I could.
Yeah.
But the world is not free. I have rent and a mortgage. I've got cars. I've got a child who has to go to school. There's food that needs to go on the table. There's bills that need to occur here, rent, electricity, you name it, it's all over the place. So unfortunately, there has to be an exchange law where you provide a service, there's a monetary exchange, right? So that first sale I had, I remember I looked at my wife after we closed. I saw one person that day. Mind you, I opened in the middle of COVID. Broward County had no like soliciting, no events, no markets.
No marketing in general.
I essentially had no marketing except for the internet. And now, mind you, everybody who had massive budgets, so their businesses didn't fail, because they're established businesses, also had the same marketing in Broward County. So they're dumping, if you know about like internet ads and stuff, there's ad spend bids. So like my budget for a month might have been like $100 a week. That's all I could afford at the time. Meanwhile, other people are 10, 20x that. So I would get these individuals that would come in my office. A lot of them were not super quality people, just wanted cheap care, quick fixes. Not really for me. I send them to one of the franchises down the street where they're super inexpensive and they're going to get no personalized care, and that's for them. No shame on them. That's their business model. I got no qualms about it. But I also was praying that God would send me the people that he wanted me to serve. And out of the mayhem of those internet ads and the people and the randoms and the not goods, I got some really amazing people out of it. Very few, but really amazing. Wow. And those amazing people started our referral-based business.
They were the roots.
They were the roots.
And then the tree grew.
And then all of a sudden their coworkers and their spouses and their children. And then all of a sudden we were like, whoa, 1 turns to 3 or 5. My mentor taught me this. It's never about the one person that's coming into your initial exam. There's 3 to 5 people that sit behind them. So serve them and love them to the ultimate extent, so then they desire to refer you the 3 to 5 that you can make an impact on as well.
Wow. That's an invaluable lesson.
I have an amazing mentor. Shout out Dr. Jason Sabo, Edmonton, Alberta. Your boy from South Florida moved to Edmonton, Alberta for 2.5 years. I never saw like lower than 50-degree temperature, and then I went to a place with -60 wind chill at certain points.
How did you end up there from South Florida, though?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, told you guys I'm a diabetic, type 1. Super controlled now, praise the Lord. I was at a conference and I heard Dr. Jason speaking. I was sitting in the back. I didn't even want to go to this conference. It's the year 2015. I'm freshly into chiropractic school. My dad kind of encouraged me to go to this conference, but I didn't really want to go. I wanted to party with my new friends at school, again, being a child and immature and not really having that mission mind yet. And he started talking about this gentleman named Brian. Brian came in for low back pain, typical person going to see a chiropractor, not thinking about neurology or what the impact is. Brian was a type 1 diabetic. Dr. Jason is adjusting Brian for months. And then one day, Brian stopped showing up. And we have a policy, like we really care about you guys in our office. We don't call you guys patients in our office, we call you practice members because you become a member of our chiropractic family. So like you'll find out if you skip out on an appointment, my staff is calling you like, hey Patrick, is everything okay? Are you good? We want to check in on you. Not about like, I can't believe you missed your appointment.
The level of care, for sure.
There's a level of care where we really want to make sure you're good, because we know that car accidents happen. We know that deaths occur. We know, like, we're not ignorant to the world.
Yeah.
So we want to check in on you and love on you and make sure that you're good. And then once we find out we're good, we're like, all right, don't miss out on your checkups. Like, get your butt in the office. We'll reschedule that for you. But I remember they followed up with Brian, and turns out he comes in weeks and weeks later. He went for his annual endocrinology appointment, like his diabetic checkup. They run all his labs, and they're like, wow, this is weird. We got to send you to the hospital. Canada, universal healthcare, that's a pretty normal thing if they have to do like extra checkups or things that get to like another level. So goes to the hospital, admit him, starts running through like these lab tests all the time. And they're like, we don't know what happened, but your pancreas is working again. And my ears in the back of the room with like 600 people in this room just went, whoop. And I was like, say what? I've never heard of type 1 diabetes getting healed.
Yeah.
Ever. Because it's an autoimmune thing.
Yeah.
Right? Now that I have a lot more physiological and scientific knowledge, I start to dig into what this autoimmune title means. What are the triggers that create these things? Mm-hmm. And I remember I beelined it up to this guy. He got off the stage. I was like, I got to go meet him. And I was like, dude, I'm a diabetic. I got to know what you do. Like, what did you do for him? As if it's cookie cutter. What's going to work for Brian is going to work for me.
Hit the same C1. Come on, do me,
like,
bro.
Do the same thing. And I remember he said, so in chiropractic, we utilize this term subluxation. Subluxation means that there is a neurological interference. The joints have misaligned. They've occluded the foramen. They put pressure on the nerves and interfere with the signal that transmits from the brain to the body and the body back to the brain, which creates irritation, dis-ease that can lead to disease and disruption into our system. So I'm going to use that term subluxation. So if you guys need to rewind and rewatch that, just understand that it's an interference. It's a blockage.
It's a kink in a hose.
Yeah, it's a kink in a hose. He says, Michael, I located the subluxation and I corrected it. And then I left it alone. And when he would come back, I would find his subluxation, I would correct it, and I would leave it alone.
Holy shit.
It was like the most philosophical, scientific, easy thing. And I was like, there's got to be more. I've been suffering with this for over a decade at this point. There's got to be more. Mm-hmm. He goes, you find the subluxation, you correct the subluxation, and you leave it alone. And I think I feel like I just got like some crazy like philosophy knowledge drop, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, this guy just said something so basic.
So simple, it's complicated.
What does that even mean? So I kind of I was like, thanks, man, I appreciate your time. Like, great to meet you. Cool. Didn't really ask about him. Where's he from? What's he do? I was like, bro, you got to give me this information. And I walked away. I didn't talk to him for months and months and months. And so now I'm in school. I'm going through outside technique seminars, science seminars. I was the guy where I knew that the upper cervical chiropractic care worked for me. So I was like, I'm going to dig into this as deep as I can.
And you were already getting this care, right? You were getting upper cervical care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I had stopped a lot of them at school because then they try to put you with a student so you could learn and the student gets to practice on you. Those are dark times. Anybody who knows that you've been to chiropractic school or any sort of like doctorate program where you have to be cared for by like a fellow student, you're like, oof, those are rough days. Those are dark days, bro.
Especially somebody who's dependent on a certain level of care.
Shout out to Dr. Ray Drury. Found him up in Charlotte. He also mentored me while I was in school. Started getting upper cervical care again. I would drive an hour and 35 minutes from school to Charlotte, North Carolina to go get upper cervical care. Shout out Dr. Ray Drury. You know I love you. Your family is amazing. So I'm learning all this information. I'm talking with one of my buddies, and I'm the crazy analytical thinker where I'm up all night. I'm like, how do I make this better? How can this get better? The developer of chiropractic, BJ Palmer, there's a lot of flack around him and misunderstandings, but that dude was a genius. Mm-hmm. That dude was always thinking outside of the box 200 years ahead of everybody. He was taking 3D x-rays before cone beam CT ever existed.
Really?
Yeah. So now we have a machine that can take me 1,000 3D images of the skull and the neck in 8 seconds. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Now, the first story of chiropractic care. Share that.
Yeah.
B.J. Palmer. Sorry,
D.D. Palmer, his father.
Sorry, D.D. Palmer.
So D.D. Palmer has, again, some weird stuff surrounding him. So I kind of look at it just from like an objective historical viewpoint. The guy also was an outside the box thinker. You got to remember, this is like 1895. Osteopathy is on its way up. Osteopathy is getting founded. Chiropractic's getting founded. Medicine is still fairly infancy. Like, they're doing cadavers and stuff, but they don't know a lot. They're learning a lot, but it's still in its infancy.
They're barely washing their hands.
Exactly.
No big pharma yet, but
which comes pretty shortly after. That's probably another podcast.
Another episode, yeah.
He has a janitor that works in his building. D.D. Palmer was a magnetic healer prior to figuring out chiropractic, but he always studied anatomy. He always looked at the human body, looked at the spine. The janitor told him he was deaf. So
completely deaf.
Okay. And he goes, the guy who studies anatomy, physiology, like trying to figure this stuff out in 1895 with the limited resources that there were back then. We're so blessed now. You can open up an app and be like, here's the vagus nerve. This is where it trends. Takes me 30 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Back then they didn't have that, right?
Of course.
So story goes that he adjusted a bone in his upper cervical spine, which now we know we have neurology that goes from the brain to the ears, corrected that bone, and all of a sudden, Harvey Lillard's hearing was restored.
Wow.
So this is when D.D. Palmer said he didn't really know much. It was kind of like one of those trial things, and it'd probably be illegal today if you just try stuff without any information.
Knocking people in the back of the head.
Exactly. And I mean, thank God it worked out, because if it didn't work out, maybe chiropractic wouldn't exist today. So that's my belief in God's divine intervention and plans.
Yeah.
I don't know if D.D. Palmer knew Jesus. I don't know if B.J. Palmer knew Jesus. That's not my...
Jesus knew him.
But Jesus knew him. And that divine intervention led chiropractic to becoming a profession. Chiropractic was still kind of shunned upon. Andrew Still was starting osteopathy at the time. Andrew Still's foundation was everything is run through the blood flow and the circulation. Chiropractic is everything run through the nerve flow. The nerves control the blood, so the nerves are more important than the blood. And it was this kind of like, they were friends, but it was also this like disagreement, this physiological disagreement, right? Then comes the Spanish flu. So we can kind of even move to the next phase on how chiropractors became a licensed profession. So the Spanish flu occurs, tons of people are dying, tons. Hospitals were creating something called triage units. If you had a good chance of living, they would move you into the hospital and try and treat you with the medicines. If you had no chance of living or dying pretty much close to death or dead, they'd put you out in these outside tents. Where it's like, essentially it's like, let's not waste our resources on these people.
Yeah, make it comfortable for them, give them some
do the best you can, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Chiropractors, infancy, 1895, this is 1918, so that's what, 27 years? It's not very long for a profession.
No.
There's not a ton of chiropractors at that time.
Yeah.
They started going around to these triage tents, these no hope left for these people tents, saying, well, the nerves control stuff. Let's make sure that their bones are in alignment, their joints are healthy, and let's start adjusting them.
Wow.
So they were going to the sick people where they could risk getting the flu, right? The Spanish flu that's so detrimental. They would adjust them. They ended up having incredible results. It was like over 98 or 99%. For all my historians in chiropractic, if my percentages are off, please don't crush me. Just leave a comment on what the true percentages are. I've got a poster over here, so if we need to reference it.
We don't need to go that far.
It's got the exact percentage.
You got a problem.
You know, some people, they're like, you were off by 0.2%.
Wow.
The vast majority of, I think they ended up only losing between pneumonia and Spanish flu. It was no more than like, I think it was 0.5% of the people that they cared for.
Oh, shit.
Meanwhile, the medical world lost like 25%. 25% death rate. We had like 0.5% death rate, 0.5.
At that point,
So that's when the government.
I want to go to the tent.
Right. That's when the government stepped in and goes, all right, these guys aren't quacks.
Oh shit.
There's something here.
Yeah.
And then came a lot more of the big medicine, big pharmaceuticals, big push against chiropractic. Because you got to kind of think, if you make money in hospitals, you make money with sick care, and people are getting well, doesn't that take money away from the sick care? And unfortunately, our world is run by money. It's run by greed. It's not a healthy place to live in that aspect. So I've dedicated my life towards healthcare and not sick care, and the restoration of health versus the treatment of disease.
I absolutely love that, and you can see it in every day in the way you serve. You serve so many people in such a beautiful way, and it's just so profound and so beautiful. But we did get off track. I want to come back. How did you end up in Alberta? We were at college. It's okay. I threw us off a little bit.
I don't have the weave skills like Donald Trump.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
You see him on the. You gotta weave it back. And I was like, this is funny. That's so funny to watch. So a few months later, Dr. Sabo's up at Sherman College of Chiropractic, which is where I went to chiropractic school.
Okay.
I'm going through all these seminars, I'm talking to my buddy, and I'm trying to put stuff together. I'm trying to make techniques better. I'm like, man, if I take this from that one, I put this one together, I'm like, maybe we can affect people better. Yeah. I'm like, maybe we can get better results. Maybe we can make chiropractors more congruent and consistent so we don't have to have so many of the bad ones or the less fortunate ones, and we could have more really good clinicians and communicators. So I'm at this conference at my school. Dr. Sabo's there. I go and say hello again because it had been a few months. And I said to him, I was like, I knew he had a high volume practice. He saw a lot of people. So I went up to him and I said, hey man, you know what I've been thinking about is like, what if I take these principles and from this technique and these principles from this technique and these principles from this technique and I start blending them together? Like, what do you think on that? And I'm asking him because he sees a lot of people. So he has good clinical data.
Yeah.
And he literally kind of chuckles and he looks at me and he goes, you don't know what I do you? Because I told you our conversation at that other conference was about this big. It was kind of like, find the subluxation, correct the subluxation, leave it alone, move on. Like, that was it. And I was like, no, what's up? He's like, you know, I created my own technique on those exact same principles you just asked me about.
1, 2, and 3? No
he was like, he goes, I took all the conferences in school. I loved all the science behind it. And then the Holy Spirit started speaking to me on how I could start putting them together into a system. And we could take the best of the best from all these different things and we could help more people. And I kind of like, I had like this like in the face and I was like, show me. So that was the initial phase of that mentorship and mentee.
Wow.
Maybe it was a mentorship or a mentee that he didn't want, but he couldn't get rid of me. I was a flea on his tush. Every conference I'd see him, hey, Dr. Jason. Hey, Dr. Jason. You want to hang out? You want to talk? I was probably the most annoying student he ever had in his whole career. Maybe he'll disagree. But I feel like I was super annoying. And I'm so grateful for him. So I ended up taking his conference. I went through his whole technique. Come full circle, I started helping him teach the technique when I worked up in Alberta with him. He offered me a position my last year of school. I think he almost thought I wasn't going to do it from a certain aspect because I had to. So American boards and Canadian boards are two different things. Like for nurses, the NCLEX is universal from America and Canada, the US and Canada. Okay. You only have to take one exam. I had to take 5 exams in the US to get licensed, and then I had to take 3 more in Canada.
Oh my goodness.
One of these tests is like months of studying. It's very difficult.
The Canadian one.
All of them, each one of them. So I ended up taking 8 exams where a lot of students struggle to pass even one of them, let alone I had to go through a series of 8 different tests for both countries. Credit to you, bro. So I remember I saw him, this is now a few months later after he offered me like, hey, do you want to come intern? Do you want to come the possibility of like coming up to Edmonton? I was single at the time. My parents were comfortable where they were doing. My brother and sister were off doing their thing. So I was like, I got no reason to like stay in South Carolina or Florida at the time. So I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. I signed up for my first test in Toronto, and I saw him like 2 weeks before, And I ran up to him at the conference, as I usually did. And I go, hey man, I'm flying up to the chiropractic college in Toronto. I'm going to take my first Canadian board in it was like 10 days or 2 weeks or something. And he's like, oh. And I just remember this. He goes, let's go out to dinner. And it was kind of like those things where he's so busy that he might even have like forgotten or like just.
So he offered you a job?
He offered me like, come up and like see how you like Edmonton, come intern with me, come do your last quarter of school, and maybe this can like formulate into a position.
Yeah.
And which like him and I are very straight shooters where we're like, if this works out, we're gonna be here.
Yeah.
And if it probably wasn't for COVID, I probably would still be there to this day. Like I loved working with him. I love his family. I love Alberta. I married a Canadian. I love my.
You met your wife up there, right?
I love my Canucks. She is the most amazing woman on the planet, and again, God's divine intervention. That as a single guy, I move up to Canada, and one of the first few dates I go on in Canada turns out to be my forever person.
Wow, that's beautiful.
We get married. We start a family. Dr. Sabo's parents or ministers, rest in peace to his father, an amazing human being. They married us. I had no money at the time. Dr. Sabo and his wife and his kids did our decorations on a free bridge at a local park that I got married on. I had less than $1,000 to my name at the time. Me and my wife wore $6 Amazon wedding bands for the first few years of our life.
Wow.
And our marriage together. So when you just know that you know, you just take the leap into faith and God will tell you it's the right move.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So
you guys have one of the most profound relationships, and it's so beautiful to see you guys together and loving each other. I know I've told you this before, but yeah, it's amazing.
We're blessed. We met the day after Valentine's Day in 2019.
Anniversary's coming up.
Right.
Coming up.
I asked her to be my girlfriend like a month later, going on dates, really, feeling each other out. So that's March. I went away in May. So it was the first time I spent time away from her because we spent almost every day together. We just like clicked. We were like, this is our person. We love hanging out together.
Yeah.
I come back from a conference in May. I asked her to marry me with no engagement ring. I just was like, you're my person. I don't know. I don't want to keep nonsensing this.
Wow.
We got married August 22nd, 2019, 6 months and 7 days to the day that we met.
The day that you met, 6 months?
And August will be our 6-year anniversary, and I'll say our marriage is stronger and happier and healthier now than it was almost 6 years ago.
Wow. That's unbelievable. That's amazing, man.
So it's about the person, it's not about the timeline.
When you know, you know.
Amen.
You can't argue with that. I mean, 6 months. It wasn't no trial period. It was nothing. It was like, this is it. I'm doing it. Took the leap of faith, man. That's unbelievable. It's beautiful. It really is. So we were in Canada, met our mentor, we met our wife. COVID happens?
COVID occurs.
Okay. Pick it up from there.
From a mindset perspective, I was really disappointed in how the Canadian government handled it.
Yeah.
They essentially lumped chiropractors in with hair salonists, so they shut down our practice.
What?
Yeah, so they had this reopening phase where you would be in a certain segment or grouping, and that's at this point they would reopen you. So they didn't respect chiropractors, doctors of chiropractic, doctors in their country, doctors that have passed.
They were certifying with 3 different tests. They had to take a month.
And provincial testing and continuing education and all of the things you have to do to keep your license. All the regulatory boards, the audits, the everything you had to do.
God.
So I wasn't really thrilled with that. And so that occurs. My wife was pregnant at the time. We were nervous, frustrated. I was the primary breadwinner in our family. Went to zero. Went on unemployment, EI is what they call it up there. And I just prayed about it. And God never let me down. Checks that I didn't know I was owed from past taxes and years would show up in my mailbox.
What?
Dude, incredible God story where I never actually lost money. Like my income stayed the same between the EI and these like random checks that would show up.
Okay.
Dude, I kid you not. That was like a really big propulsion in my faith, where like when God wants you to like fall on your knees and ask for help and ask for the things that your heart is concerned about. And that was one of those early phases where like I got saved when I was young, but I didn't really walk with Jesus. And it wasn't until I really moved to Canada that I really started walking with Jesus, because I was in a new country, no friends, no family. I really needed that I needed someone to be there for me, and Jesus was there for me every step of the way. Any anxiety or panic or any issue that I had, he took me out of it. He showed me the footsteps. And even though I was excited to work with my mentor and be with my mentor and his family, who are amazing human beings, there's still stress, right? There's still fears. I'm working in a country where I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans in US dollars. The Canadian dollar is way weaker than the US dollar. So I'm getting what's a normal salary up there, and then it translates to essentially poverty level in the US. So I can't even pay my student loans, hence the student loan conversation. So I just saved as much money as I could, and then transferred over a few $1,000 when we got to the States, and that's how when we did my wife's immigration and everything, and that's how I ended up starting the practice. But to weave back into COVID, we prayed about it, and God just said, you need to be around family. So my mom's father lives in Ontario, my father-in-law.
Okay.
So we're pretty much a whole country apart.
Your mom's
my wife's father. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My wife's father. My father-in-law lives in Ontario. And so I was talking with her, and I said, as God is encouraging us to be near family, as our child's going to be born, where would you like to go? And I said, do you want to go back to Florida, where I'm from? But that's a different. My wife's never lived in another country. I at least have had now years in both countries, so I'm good with either. And she's like, ideally, if COVID didn't happen, we would have moved out to like Calgary or Vancouver and started a satellite clinic and, done something like that. But it did happen. And my wife goes, wait, I don't have to deal with winters if we move to Florida. Like, let's go to Florida. So I had a conversation with my mentors, and I said, hey, this is where our heart is, and this is what we're going to do. And it was a hard conversation, because I committed to them, and like my word is, when I tell you I'm going to do something, like I'm going to do it no matter what it takes. And but the way that the government handled it, the way that they shut us down, the way that they didn't really respect chiropractors or what we offered our community and the restoration and healing there, it was really disheartening as a young doctor early in my career. And I just had a conversation with them, and I was like, I really want to like fight back against this. I really want to like go to the board. I want to go to the health ministry. And they're like, you know what? That's not our calling. And let's just keep doing what we're doing. And the fighter in me was like, I really feel like I need to stand up for what's right. But I respect their business. I respect their life. I respect their mentorship. I respect their word. I am submissive to their mentorship. I am working with them and for them for God's glory. Yeah. So what they told me, I respect it completely. And I take that and I go, okay. So I just said, this is where we're called. We're going to apply for immigration and try to get back to the US. And, they said, hey, can you get me through this time? And I said, yep. I said, I'll give you my word. I will stay here this long. So we ended up staying there through the end of the year. Okay. So we dealt with COVID for almost 10 months there, and it was very difficult. My parents couldn't come meet their only grandchild because Justin Trudeau kept extending the border closures. And
it's a big ask. 10 months?
10 months. So Grayson was 6 months old before my parents met him.
Holy
Their first grandchild, their only grandchild.
And you couldn't go down?
Closures.
Wow.
I think there was a chance that I could have gone down because I had U.S. citizenship.
Yeah.
And Grayson had U.S. citizenship as being a dual citizen. Okay. But Jenilyn, my wife, would have had issues. And then there would have been issues of me trying to come back.
Gotcha. Yeah, you don't want to risk that.
Right. And then I'm supposed to be working and all these things, and all of our stuff is there. So we ended up doing our immigration thing, packed a car, shipping stuff, and we flew down at the end of the year, and our attorney finished up the immigration stuff when we got here, and we've now been here since end of 2020. And we went back to Canada a few times. We go back summerly now, and not to live there, obviously, but to visit and to love on our family and our community there. And
Yeah, and what was to open your own practice, you didn't have a book of clients, you didn't work for anybody here.
Nope.
You weren't handed a business from your dad.
Nope.
What was the level of risk, the comfortability? How did you manage that?
100% risk.
It was all risk.
All
How
risk.
did
it was
you?
all risk. I'm grateful as a 29-year-old man with a wife and a child. I humbled myself and I went and stayed in a bedroom that's about 150 square feet at my parents' house for a year with a fresh marriage and a fresh baby.
Wow. Yeah, that
which was
be complicated to say the least.
Complicated and difficult. And I'm grateful for my parents for that, though, that offered it. Because they could have been like, suck it up, go take a loan, go get an apartment, go do what you got to do. And some people don't have living parents. Some people don't have family with that. So I'm very blessed to have that.
Yeah. Parents are amazing.
Yeah.
Just plugging in.
Yeah.
Plugging in.
Very grateful.
Justin the Cohens, love you guys.
I had very minimal expenses back then. And that was how we really did it. My expenses were really my business overhead.
Okay.
And minimal home personal expenses at that time. And we kept it that way for about a year and a bit. I didn't take a salary from my office for literally over a full year. I just reinvested every single dollar that came in to more marketing, more branding. I mean, I even remember when, to do a farmer's market, you need to have a 10 by 10 tent. It's like, those things are like 150, 200 bucks. I remember when I used to have to think about like, can I afford to buy the tent?
Yeah.
Is there a way, like these like sick things are going in your head? It's like, if I buy this from Costco, can I then return it and get my money back after I do the market? Because you literally have no money to your name. And it takes money to make money.
Yeah.
But I relied on my faith, and God always gave me a way out. He always gave me an opportunity, and a new practice member would walk in the door and a few $100 more would be made, and then I could take that money and go buy the tent. I could go buy the table. Do you know how many farmers markets I did without a tablecloth?
Just the table?
Dude, this gross ass Costco table that my parents let me have for free that's like 25 years old.
Got the coffee stain.
Dude, it's stained all over it. I remember a dude walked up to my table, like, all my stuff, and he's like, this guy was like a handyman. He's like, start scraping my table. He's like, you can get this glue off, right? And I'm like, oh, gosh. I'm like, yes, come trust me with your family's health while I have this disgusting table here.
Oh my goodness.
So just like
the perils of that's why it's not for the faint of heart.
No, man.
that's a reason right there.
And I know that every man, woman, and child is better off with a well-adjusted spine and a clear nervous system. So that's what kept pushing me forward at those farmers markets. I didn't feel bad chatting with anybody. I knew that if you have a subluxation present, we can correct it and we can remove that nerve interference, your life is going to be better off. You may not feel, quote unquote, feel a difference immediately, but I know the restoration of the nervous system is you'll function better. 90% of the nerves in our body do function, 10% do feeling. So I focus on that function, and then the feeling will come when the function is restored.
And that path is cleared. Wow. The beginning of entrepreneurship. Do you have any, other than the dirty table, do you have any specific stories that come to mind when it's discussed and you think about that?
Oh man, as a new business, I had a lot of people walk in here wanting free care. And I'm like, South Florida for you, man. Everybody,
Yeah.
I was like,
They wanted free care.
Free care. Oh, you're new, just use me as a trial subject. And I'm like, I just came from an office where we saw almost 1,500 people a week for almost 3 years. I was like, I may be early in my career, but the amount of patient interactions that I've had in 2.5 years of mentorship was well over 100,000.
I'm well past my trial period, honey.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm very confident in what I do. I appreciate the offer. Here's our new patient special. But that was an interesting turn because in Canada, I never saw anybody ask for free care. And I guess, kudos to them. I guess if you don't ask, you can't get, right?
Yeah.
I don't walk into my dentist's office and, hey, bro, you want to give me a free teeth cleaning today?
But even that, it's like the level of risk that you're undertaking of like, hey, by the way, do you want to like crack and snap and pop me? They don't know you. They don't know
Yeah.
how good you are. If you know what you're doing, you bought a building or you rented a building. Now you just, it's insane people to take that risk.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I worked with my wife for the first, up until about a year ago. My wife and I went through a loss personally, and that was what I felt. My wife knew she's an amazing office manager, but this is not her calling. This is my calling.
Yeah.
That's why it's not a job for me. I get to, like, I'm stoked. Our practice members know, like, when I come into work, they're like, dang, Dr. Michael, like, what are you jacked up on? I'm like, I'm jacked up on health. Let's get you healthy. Like, they know if I'm under the weather because they're like, you're about 4 levels lower than what you normally are. They're like, you're good. And I'm like, even when I'm under the weather, I still come to work.
Yeah.
Because it's a calling.
You told me you had food poisoning, running back and forth one time.
Oh,
you were not
yeah,
well,
dude.
bro.
But you know
Go
what?
home.
I know, I'm like, it's funny because you guys are like, we'll survive a day without you, but it's like my calling. Like, I feel I need to be here and serve. When the hardest days of my life occurred, I came in and I serve, because it's much better to serve other people than it is to be depressed at your own house. So a year ago, my wife and I had a conversation. We prayed about it, and we felt like, all right, this is God's hand saying, all right, you're done in the practice. So I took on this endeavor of running the office. I had an intern at the time who's amazing. She helped me through a really difficult time, but she ended up needing to leave and move on with her life. And then I had a period of time where I had nobody. We're a growing business. I needed a staff, and trying to talk about like difficulties of entrepreneurship, finding mission-minded employees.
Why is it important for them to be mission-minded?
Because we're not here to collect a paycheck. We're here to impact people's lives. This is not Target where you're checking people out. This is where people are depressed and suicidal and got the worst diagnosis of their life, and they're looking for answers. You need to be able to love on them. You need to be able to withstand the loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a parent, and be there for them. So if you're not mission-minded, you're not going to cut it.
Got to be dedicated.
100%. Thankfully, my team member, Alicia.
Shout out Alicia.
Alicia's amazing.
She's
She
the
knows how much my family loves her, and her family loves us. We just love them to pieces. Most amazing, like, so mission-minded. That's what she told me when she came in for her interview.
She said that in her interview?
In her interview, she goes, I love that you love the Lord. I love that you want to serve people. I'm here to support that in any way I can. And I was like, can you start next week?
Wow.
I was like, what?
Yeah, talk about God delivering miracles.
To an event that I almost canceled going to.
Really?
Yeah. So intern leaves. I'm running the office by myself. I am beyond stressed, trying to answer 40 phone calls a day, rescheduling people, collecting money, but then also trying to be in that service mindset and give the best adjustment possible.
Oh my gosh. Office manager and
My
deliverance.
My brain was so stressed.
Wow.
So stressed. And thankfully, I have the most amazing practice members. People were very gracious. People would wait. They weren't in a rush. They would love on us and love on me and just really like care for me during that time. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to refer me people to work at the office. You know, they were amazing. Shout out to Graceful Spinal Care practice members. You guys are amazing. I wouldn't be here without you guys. Our office wouldn't be here without you guys. I'm so grateful to have your trust, to be able to care for you and your families. It is one of the highest honors I could ever have. So I'm kind of going crazy in that aspect. I call up my wife because one of these markets was going on, and you got to pay money to go join the market and market yourself, right? It's like a normal farmer's market. And I'm so tired at this point. I just started a new patient, an hour appointment, doing it all by myself, all Florida's paperwork and all the exam stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't eaten all day. It's now like 6 o'clock. As a diabetic, I need to like have sustenance in me.
You need something.
So I called my wife and I was like, babe, I don't think I can do it. She's like, honey, you gave your commitment. Your word is your word. Ooh. Stop by the house on the way home. I'll have a sandwich ready for you. She drops me off a sandwich, and I go into the market. The second person I spoke with was Alicia.
Wow.
And she walks up to me and she goes, I love the holistic world. I love chiropractic. Are you accepting interns? My intern had just left the month before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, don't you know? I certainly am. I asked for my internships. I asked for 6-month commitments because there's a lot of, like, if I'm going to give you my time and energy and mentorship, I want commitment from you too. It's a 6-month unpaid commitment. I said, or I'm actually hiring a paid position right now to run my phones, front desk, help me with paperwork and stuff. And I said, if you're interested, I don't know if you're working right now. She goes, no, I'd definitely be interested in being hired and applying. So she sent me her resume, her CV, and she goes through, we use a DISC assessment. So for my entrepreneurs, DISC, you look at how their personality affects their adaptive versus natural state. What role, do they fit the role that you need to hire for? You know, because you don't want to ever make somebody fit into a role. You want to make sure that they're good for that role. So like, I'm not going to make somebody who's super emotional and empathetic and not task driven go do my bookkeeping.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's they're not playing to their strengths. Yeah.
Right. You're like, okay, I'm trying to force you to become something that you're not.
Yeah.
So she happened to just check off everything I needed by God's divine intervention. Everything I was looking for. So she ended up starting in the office, and it's been a beautiful relationship that she's had with our practice members. I've had a few other people work for us already. And outside of my wife, I've never seen our practice members take to her role the same way that they've taken to her with our past. And that's no qualms towards anyone else that's worked for me in the past. They're all been amazing people. But just to see the community like love on her, the way that she deserves it, she is amazing at what she does. She really cares about every single person that walks in the office and works her tush off to give them the utmost quality of care, time of day, answering their questions. And if she doesn't have the answer to their questions, says, I'm gonna get with Dr. Michael and I'm gonna find that answer for you.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how fast and well she molded into this. I don't want to just say role into the community. It's unbelievable how well she just fit right in.
Absolutely, and I mean, she supports the Isapalooza, the My Tribe community. Like, you know, she loves. It's really amazing when you see people that are mission minded. So finding mission minded employees, man.
Yeah. Wow. On that, I want to go down the road of kind of guidance, kind of. You know, what would you recommend for a young entrepreneur, a young guy, or maybe yourself, you know, a couple years back? What would you recommend to them that you know now that you wish you knew then?
Number one, mentorship. Find a mentor. I can't recommend that enough. We all try to do stuff on our own. We kind of run our heads into brick walls. And you don't have to take so long to figure stuff out. Like, there's other people who've figured out these roles and these needs and these strategies and these service understandings to be able to like help you get there faster. So I think having like a coach or a business mentor, a consultant, whatever they want to go by in today's world is super important. And I've had the most amazing ones. I love all the ones I've utilized in my career. I always get something out of them. I have some that help me with strategy, some that help me with finances, some that help me with, you know, I didn't even know about hiring my family. I mean, there's a tax law in the US where like my son is 4 years old. The guy's got an IRA that's bigger than probably most retired people. And it's tax free because he works in the office. He does my marketing. He is my branding. I have a family practice. I have a pediatric prenatal neurodevelopment, neuro-focused practice. Boom.
He's the model.
He's the model. I didn't know about that.
Wow.
So he gets paid. He's got a savings account and a Roth IRA. And it's all part of it. Yeah. He doesn't know about that. So shout out Grayson, if you're watching this in like a decade when you're older, don't ask me about it because you're not touching it.
You ain't getting it from Dad. You ain't getting it from Uncle Patrick either. It ain't happening.
I said to my wife, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to like when he's like 62 or like he's like 50 or something, you know, then I'll let him know. Or his uncle, one of my best friends, is our wealth advisor and set him up. And he's like, dude, Grayson's going to be so set. This is incredible that you could do that. And it's just those things that I didn't get. You know, my parents didn't have that ability for us. So again, the baton, passing it, paying it forward, being a great steward. So I encourage all entrepreneurs, number one, to be a good steward of your time, your energy, and your money.
In that order?
Not necessarily. I think when you're first starting, it would be in that order, because you kind of have no money when you're first starting, usually.
Yeah.
So your time is your most valuable commodity. I think time never really changes. So you have to make sure that you're utilizing your time appropriately. You're then utilizing your energy appropriately, and you're surrounding yourself with the right people to pour into you. You're not getting pulled in 57,000 different directions. You have a calendar, like you have your marketing calendar, you have your strategy calendar, like build those things out. Know that like, I'm going to do my Instagram posts. I'm going to have them queued up. There's so much technology now where you can like queue your posts on Instagram.
Yeah, you can schedule out.
Dude, you could take a Saturday on your day off or whenever you don't work, make 35 videos, edit them on CapCut. CapCut's like $90 a year. It takes 4 minutes to edit a video.
Can't download it now anymore though.
Oh, I didn't know that. Anybody want to buy my phone with CapCut on? No, I'm kidding.
No, I do. Legit though. We're going to talk about that off camera.
Or you could go on Fiverr.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Dude, there's so many ways you can do it.
I gotcha.
And just have your schedule planned for you. Know the things that you want to achieve. I use the Passion Planner, or like the Fox one I've used in the past. I can't remember, the Fox Planner or something that's on Amazon. Okay. But it like helps you like visualize like, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? And my goal always starts with like a biblical foundation. Like, how does God want me to serve and give back? And how can I reach that? The more profit that we make, it's not for me to make more money. It's for me to give back more. I read this book. It's called Leadership Not by the Book, from the guy who started, I think his name's David Green, the guy who started Hobby Lobby. And he talks about, he's a Christian organization, loves the Lord, but he gives away 50% of his profits every year. And I actually just got my gifting tax document the other day, and I saw how much I gave away. And God put it on my heart. He's like, you could 10x that. So my goal this year is, if I can serve more people, generate more income to the practice, I can 10x my service and my gifting towards other ministries, less fortunate, hungry kids, clean water, getting Bibles in hands of people who don't have the opportunity. Like, that's where my mindset goes. It's not about me collecting more and having more. All the material things turn to dust and rubble anyway. So you don't take them with you when you're gone. Is it nice to be comfortable? Sure. But like, it's not the end all be all. Some people live like that, and that's cool. Good. You go do your thing. I don't hate on you, honey boo boo. But like, it ain't for me. I want to make impact and service and spreading the word of God, that life has more meaning than just the 80 to 120 years we get on the earth. So time, energy, and then money. That's my stewardship. Not taking out unnecessary debt. Not living your life on credit. Some people, again, disagree with that. This is my calling. Yeah. This is how I live my life. I aggressively pay down my debt. So does that mean maybe less vacation, maybe less eating out, maybe less certain things for my family for a period of time? If I have to take on a debt for the business, if I have to buy a new piece of equipment that I don't feel comfortable shelling out that much money out of savings or removing it from an investment account, I'll take on debt, but I aggressively pay it down. I don't want to be in debt to people. I want to have that ability to where I could then take that money that I was paying debt, and now I can give it away. I can reinvest it. And the more money that we invest, which I love this concept from Leadership Not by the Book, is we could take money that we make in the businesses, because I have multiple businesses. I'm very grateful for that. I could take those profits and give it away. I can invest money, make profit, and give it away. It's all about like pouring more into the mission than it is about selfish gain. And some people will see that, they're like, oh, your fees are X, your fees higher than the guy down the block. And I'm like, okay, my service is higher than the guy down the block. What you get from me, you cannot get from anybody else. And I say that with love and care, not with pride and ego. Because like I said, I'm going to love you and I'm going to serve you and I'm going to care for you as if you're my own flesh and blood.
Yeah, you certainly do that. That's a fact.
So that's my recommendation for early entrepreneurs. Get your time in order, get your energy in order, figure out the events you want to do, figure out the markets you want to do. And then as you have money, be a good steward of it. Pray about it. Figure out where God wants you to put that income. Figure out where God wants you to invest that money. Is it in Facebook ads? Or maybe it's in going to support a local ministry where they're doing a market and then you get to go serve those people there and have a face-to-face communication. I love face-to-face more than I love the internet.
Yeah.
I get like excited when I get to have a face-to-face conversation and I get to see the health light bulb bing, right on in somebody's mind where they're like, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite chiropractic quotes is, were you born, it's like, the quote goes, do you have more faith in a spoonful of medicine than the power that animates the living world?
Oof.
So when I educate people,
that sums it up.
When I educate people, I don't believe in the germ theory. I believe in the terrain theory. I believe we're adaptable. And yeah, you got to be smart. If you're immunocompromised, I'm not going to say go around a whole bunch of sick people. There's science and understanding to that.
Yeah.
Being a good steward of the science that God has given us. Protecting and understanding and supporting that system. But were we born with an Advil deficiency or a Tylenol deficiency? Why on earth is that our go-to? Why on earth are we seeking the quick fix instead of the root cause care? Let's rebuild from the inside out. Healing comes from above down, inside out. It does not come from outside in, below up.
Couldn't have said it better. Could not.
I've only said it a few thousand
times.
Don't
even have a response, but that's your spiel at the markets, right? That's what you're telling
people. It's the scientific education that I love to connect, and then you see their light bulb ping on, and you're like, yo.
That shit makes sense.
Yeah, and you get to see trajectories of families change, where caring for generation after generation. I mean, I've had this practice, we're coming up on 5 years now. And I've already seen, I remember, oh man, I have so many cool stories. I could tell you testimonial story after testimonial, praise God, by his will to be done in their life and his restoration, healing in their life. But I remember I had a woman come in, I don't do PI, I don't do insurance at all. I don't like that industry. I think it's scummy. I think it's all money driven. It's not service, people, ministry driven.
Yeah.
I had a woman come in, it was a referral, right? Referral-based practice. I had a friend who was in a car accident. I know you don't do PI. Do you think you'll make this exception for her? And I was like, brand new. I think I had 5 patients at this time, 6 patients at this time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let her know. I'll direct bill her, but I'll do all the codes for her and she could give it to her attorneys, right? And comes in, take care of her. She tells me at her initial exam, we do a really thorough case history, how she's been struggling to maintain pregnancies, miscarriage after miscarriage, right? And I go, well, maybe there's a neurological interference somewhere. Maybe there's a reason why your body you're not ready to carry to term right now. So long story short, the neck issue that she had with the car accident resolves in 12 visits or something very quick. The attorney gets mad at me because they're like, we can't bill a case for this. We're not going to make any money. And I was like, oh my gosh. This is why I don't do
being good, bro.
Yeah, I was like, that's why I don't do this stuff. Whatever. She ends up staying in our office for wellness care. She wants to continue to maintain wellness for her. She understands that a clear nervous system is a healthy nervous system and makes her healthier for her life. Refers in her husband. Now we have the couple under care. And within a month of that, guess what I get? Hey doc, we're pregnant. This child was the first baby to be born into my practice from before conception.
Wow.
And this child, talk about, I will get goosebumps, God's divine intervention, was born on my birthday.
What?
Isn't that crazy? And I remember telling them, so like we had like women who had come in where they're like 8 months pregnant and the child was born in, but this was the first, like, couldn't get pregnant, couldn't maintain a pregnancy, gets pregnant, restoration has occurred, body is ready, has a baby. That baby is born on my birthday.
Bro, it's like 3 or 4 miracles we've discussed here. Like, that's insane.
It was by far, there's a lot of stories that I love. That is one of my favorites.
It's like almost your baby, but it's not.
No, it's not my baby. It's not my baby. Not at all.
Baby.
Not at all.
But it's almost.
It's an honor to be a part in people's life.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And speaking of legacy, it's going to be the last question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave?
I want no legacy. I know a lot of people don't say that. I don't want to have a legacy. I want to share the gospel of Jesus Christ so that the world gets to know that he came to love on them, that you don't have to be perfect. He died for you in your imperfections and in your sin, to know that you don't have to rely on your own works and you can rely on his cross work, that he came to die for your past, present, and future sins and resurrect and rise again 3 days later to give you eternal life. Dr. Michael Cohen needs to have no legacy. I need to have no name, no tombstone, no obituary, no nonsense. My life is not for me, but for Christ who gave me life. I get to have eternity with him. All the glory goes to God. You will hear me say that in my office 100 times a day. Thank you for the healing, Dr. Michael. It's not by me, it's by God's hand. Thank God for the healing.
You always say. You literally never take credit.
Because I want no credit. I deserve no credit. I'm a broken piece of crud. But I am honored to be called into this role where I get to glorify God's name above all other names.
Wow. That's not an answer I expected to hear. That's beautiful.
Yep.
For a man so driven, so family orientated. I don't want a legacy. I want Jesus' path to be just keep being molded forward.
Yep.
Is that an accurate way to summarize it?
Yeah, I want his glory to be that. I would rather the legacy be turned onto his glory instead of people remembering me. Because I'm already known by the Father. I'm going to get to heaven and they're like, what's up, bro? I'm excited for that day.
Yeah, I got some bad news. People are going to remember you and the impact that you've had on their life. Whether you like it, whether you want it, you keep doing what you're doing. You ain't going to have a choice in that matter.
That's okay. That's not what I'm striving for, and if God has it to be done that way, so be it. But that's not what I strive for. But I appreciate that.
Of course, man. It's been such a blessing, such an honor, and thank you for your time here today. Any last words for our millions of listeners here?
Oh, man. Words from my mentor. When you feel like there's a lot going on and you want to build and you want to grind and you want to achieve new heights, you can only ever serve the one that is in front of you. So give them your all and you make an impact on their life. And then you can move on to the next thing. Slow down, take a breath, work within the heartbeats, work in that quiet space, get into your flow zone, and know that God has that person in front of you, that client in front of you, the tens of thousands of people watching on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and millions to come and listen to this. Slow down, serve the one, keep God at the center, and everything else will be worked out for you.
That's beautiful. It's certainly something I know I needed to hear in this growing and this evolution that I'm going through, that I'm sure many people are. So to be present, to take care of the one, take care of the opportunities in front of you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank God. Thank Jesus. Thank everybody here today, brother. Thank you so much, man. Such an honor, such a pleasure.
Dude, honor is mine. Love you, love what you're doing in the community, and I'll look forward to the next time.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Much love as well, brother. Thank you.